Hello, and welcome to our Global Ballet Teacher community. Welcome to the Backstage at the Ballet series. We are thrilled to have you here listening. My name is Cecilia Iliesiu, and I am the Director of Global Ballet Teachers, as well as a soloist dancer with the Pacific Northwest Ballet. We've been running the show here, Global Ballet Teachers, since March 2020. So May 2020. So it's been awesome to get to know you and provide different resources for you. And our goal is to create free community-led courses, classes, and resources to educate and empower ballet teachers around the world. And we are doing just that with this Backstage at the Ballet series by talking to you about different ballet productions, in addition to providing resources that are available on our global Google Classrooms site. So go there after to explore all of our videos and documents that Leora puts together. It's awesome. So in this episode, we are going to be featuring the ballet production that PNB, Pacific Northwest Ballet, the company that danced in Seattle, Washington in the US. They just performed over the last 2 weekends, and it's called Plot Points. So this is different than the last production, Romeo and Juliet, that we did, because that was a full-length piece. Plot Points, although it has one title to the production, has 4 different pieces in it. So we're going to dig into that. And without further ado, I will also introduce Leora, who's up here. I don't know where she is on your screen. And then Lena Wolf, who was our guest today. But before I pass it on to them, a few things. This chat is being recorded, obviously. And that's it. Great. So Leora, take it away to introduce yourself, and then we'll pass it on to Lena.
Hi, my name is Leora. I am coming to you from Toronto, Canada. Most recently, I've been doing ballet appreciation programs for children, and I'm passionate about the talking side. So Ballet Let's Talk About It is my second name.
And Lena,
Awesome.
take it away.
Hi, I'm Lena Wolf. I'm a New York City, US-based freelance dancer. Cece and I knew each other from our shared time in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle. I do a lot of different things as a freelancer. I'm primarily in the musical theater community in New York City. I also do precision dance and circus arts. So lots and lots of different things. I'm also an educator and have my hands in mixed reality and augmented reality theater development, and immersive theater is another big one. So lots and lots of words coming out at you right now. We can dig into that a little more later.
Lena is definitely a jack of all trades. So although she specializes in ballet and dance, she also has a whole other brain, an optic engineer, which is just incredible, and just shows the diversity of dancers and how incredible they are. So just wanted to shout out to you. But Leora, take it away.
Thank you. Will I be able to share my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. So I'll start out by saying that Lena's biography and what she does, etc., is a bit of a giveaway, because even at this point, without having said a word about any of those works that you will have access to through the digital performance, which is upcoming, already we have an inkling that we're not talking strictly about ballet, and that this is somehow related. So on the one hand, let me not give out the secret, but on the other hand, that's what we're here to do. So this is the handout that we will be offering through Google Classrooms. And it just has a little bit of information about each of the works. It's all taken from the PNB website, the information about the works themselves, and where there was a biography for any of the creators, I augmented a little bit with external resources, but they're all available to all online. So the other disclaimer that I have to provide is that I'm going to lay it on a little bit thick for the sake of making the point. So in anticipation of this performance, Pacific Northwest Ballet. They have a beautiful website, always very informative. So, you know, as a member of the audience, I very diligently go over to the website to do my homework and prepare myself for the performance because, you know, I look forward to all of them. And I come across all of the publicity material that they offer freely to the public. And I look through it and I can't help myself but start to wonder. So I'll start out with a photo, which is the one which we selected for the flyer for this program. The CC is the one who is behind that. Okay, cool, great. Masked men with their faces and identities concealed. They look ever so slightly a little bit spooky, but okay, I'm keeping an open mind. It's all good. Pacific Northwest Ballet, I trust them. They'll be offering something of great value and artistic merit, etc. And I apologize again, I'm laying it on thick. Do with it as you may. So the 4 works are as follows. Before I Was is a world premiere. It has been choreographed on Pacific Northwest Ballet. I hope I'm pronouncing this right, by Robin Mineko Williams. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're perfect. And also,
Oh.
are you sharing your screen?
Yes.
Oh, we don't see it.
Oh, okay. Rewind, start from the beginning. Oh no. Yes.
There we go. Perfect. Okay.
I'm so sorry.
I knew
Thank
that
you
you
for
had
pointing that
something
out.
to, yeah.
Yes. Masked men looking a little bit spooky. Yes, I apologize. And here we go again. So the first of the 4 works, Before I Was, world premiere with Pacific Northwest Ballet. And I start reading the background, you know, a little bit of information, all very good. And then I get to the last paragraph, and there's more on the website. I have the links for you over there. The first movement, furniture. Okay, cool. Bulletins, second movement, pebble. Now, even at this early stage, this kind of clues me into the fact that this perhaps does not line up with my preconceived ideas and expectations about what a ballet company might be presenting. For the most part, titles aren't as ambiguous. And how would a piece, a segment of a work entitled Pebble, how would that look on stage, I wonder? It gets me wondering. Okay, pictures are always a good thing. With a world premiere, sometimes it's harder to come across information because it has never been presented before. You cannot find any pictures or videos from performances of previous companies. These were given to me at a later date. Okay, no tutus, no point shoes. I see socks, but we're good. Not a problem. I'm not panicking at this point. Please feel free to rein me in if I'm going too far out there.
You're all
with
good.
Making my point. Next work, I'm good. Caught. Read about it, photography, catching movement mid-flight. I'm all good. This I can understand. And then I find out that this solo can be performed by either a male or female dancer. So I've been to many a ballet. I've watched many a ballet online as well. Never before have I come across a role where it did not matter what the gender of the dancer was. So for example, to the extreme, if we're talking about Swan Lake, I have very firm expectations that Siegfried, the male character, will be danced by a male identifying dancer. And similarly for Odile role, Swan Queen, female ballerina, you know, parallel, one-on-one, everything matches up. And yet we have a piece here that brings in to the experience or ideas that go beyond what we normally expect to find on the ballet stage. And through this, I can already at this stage start to entertain the thought that perhaps it is possible to see movement in a way which is detached from the dancer who is executed and performing the movement, in which case, who is performing doesn't carry as much weight. If one can zoom out a little bit and look at the dance and not necessarily at the dancer. Just a thought. And then again, so the pictures that were provided via Pacific Northwest Ballet offer a female dancer, but I did look at the cast list of who we can expect to be performing the different roles on any of the performances, and they too will be giving this dance the opportunity to be performed by a male dancer and a female dancer, depending on which night you choose to watch the work.
And just want to point out there, the costume difference would be the male would be shirtless and the woman would wear a bra top. But that's the only difference. They wear the same pants and the same jazz shoes, but just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Yeah. So plot point, singular, as opposed to plot points in plural, which is the title that was given to the evening as a whole. So plot point, a work by Crystal Pite. Did I get that one okay, pronunciation-wise? Thank you. I Googled this one. Plot point. Plot point is a thing. It's actually a term that comes from the field, the body of knowledge of screenwriting, writing for media, television, film. And that's a whole other world that as a ballet goer, I would not necessarily have interacted with. Like I pride myself that I know my ballet pretty well, but from the moment that external inspirations are brought into the work, whether using ballet vocabulary or other, it puts me a little bit in a different position. I'm not as confident. I don't know what to expect in the same way as I would with other works, which is not a bad thing. I'm just to make sure that you guys understand that I'm being kind of funny here with my overcompensating here about what's that. So I look at the pictures again, and I see those the masked white faces, and I see the scenery where, in some respects, with the lone figure in the dark, menacing forest, I would think, but there's no room to dance if you have all of that scenery on stage. How are they going to dance? Which is perhaps, I would think, a very ballet approach, where the stage, for the most part, is clear of obstacles in order to let the dancing take place. And perhaps the emphasis in this work will be different part of the time. So once again, there's a lot of information that definitely takes me out of my comfort zone. So I leave it up to all of you who will be reading, watching, researching, Googling, to read up about it to the extent that you're drawn to that. A certain disclaimer that I feel that should be brought to your attention is that there are depictions of violence in this piece. So if you are teachers and you were thinking of seeing this with your students, perhaps you would consider that again, maybe watch it in advance. Some segments are available online, and we're offering a few clips on the Google Classroom for your reference as well. Last but not least, The Times Are Racing, a work which was originally by Justin Peck, which was originally set on New York City Ballet, where I sigh a sigh of relief. Oh my goodness, a ballet company. If this was done on a ballet company, this should be good. All should be well. And then I look at the pictures again. I think maybe I'm going a bit overboard here. Okay, and then I look at the pictures again, and they're in sneakers, for heaven's sakes. Not a tutu in sight, not a point shoe, no soft shoes. They're even wearing street clothes. And not only that, if that weren't bad enough, there's another disclaimer. Here too, some roles are interchangeable between a man and a woman dancing together, or two men dancing together. So I did find a few examples. So it's not the same company performing, but you do see that in one duet / pas de deux, it can be danced with a man and a woman. And the second duet is danced by, again, either a man and a man or a man and a woman, and they are actually wearing the same thing, as opposed to the gendered costuming for cot, once that came up in conversation. So this brings me to what we're doing here today. And I believe I can stop sharing at this point, and I'll go back to seeing all the screens. And this brings me to a more serious, or at least less jovial point, which is, Cecilia, you're a ballet dancer, a soloist with Pacific Northwest Ballet. I've seen you as a Sugar Plum Fairy, in Nutcracker, in Romeo and Juliet, on your tippy toes, etc., in tutus with tiaras, being lifted and thrown in the air and caught as if no effort were involved, and this was all surreal and illusionist. What have you guys been up to with this production?
Yeah, so thank you for that intro of all 4 pieces. Just as a disclaimer, they're all extremely different than probably what you would think a normal ballet company would do. As Leora pointed out, there is no point shoe, ballet bun, or anything in sight. So it's definitely been a challenge because we're trained to be in point shoes and be lifted, and all of this work is very grounded. And I definitely want to lean on Lena to talk about how that transition from styles goes. But it's been a challenge, honestly, because you're trained to be a certain way as a ballerina, and then when you're asked to do more contemporary non-balletic work, it's completely different movement quality and technique. But what is important is why would a ballet company do these works is because ballet dancers have a specific quality and technique that can bring something out in the dance. So kind of as a segue to bring Lena into the conversation a little bit is, Lena, tell us a little bit about your journey in ballet and what you do now and how you rely on ballet to do what you do now, if that makes sense.
Crossovers, many crossovers.
Crossing over, trying to get as many crossovers. So my background is very, very strongly in jazz dance, actually. But I started ballet a little bit later in life, if you consider the age of 13 later in life. For most people in professional ballet companies, yes, that is very, very much later. Most people like Cece have started training in classical ballet at 3, 4, starting at 8 might be considered late. But we're seeing that shift now. There's a lot of looking at the health of maturing bodies and dancers and genders, and how all of that comes together in both the professional ballet world and just the professional dance world in general. And that is a whole other topic that can be discussed at a different time, but that's a lot happening right now. And it is actually relevant to incorporating and cross-training different disciplines of dance. So my journey with ballet started with, oh, well, I want to be able to be a jazz dancer. Well, where did jazz come from? Jazz was the departure from classical, or the incorporation of the departure from classical ballet training. If we think to some of the most original, going to more dance history, looking at Jacob's Pillow and, oh wow, reaching way back, looking at Isadora Duncan and Martha Graham, and how their departure from classical ballet was brought into modern dance, looking at African and Southeast Asian influences of dance and bringing that into contemporary dance movement. So going away from ballet. Then you started to get into jazz dancers, so incorporating a lot of the more rhythmic movement of jazz and tap, bringing back that ballet technique, but turning it in. So looking at Luigi, Matt Maddox, Gus Giordano, all of these choreographers and technicians, and Bob Fosse brought their work from a place of ballet technique, modern technique, and then infusing it with style. So the importance of the roots, but also the departure of it. And I highly recommend, actually, if you can get your hands on it, there's a documentary called Uprooted. It's a jazz dance documentary. So it goes through the entire history of jazz dance up through now times, contemporary dance, and more modern influences on it. So
yeah, we'll add that to the Google Classrooms. So thank you for sharing that.
It's a really, really wonderful documentary that follows a ton of different choreographers. And I have a ton, so many notes, Leora, after listening to what you had been talking about of, well, this seems to be outside of my vocabulary, but it is actually, I'm going to encourage you to think about proving yourself wrong if you've ever seen any of Balanchine's ballets or watched New York City Ballet, because there's a lot of crossover that happens, and I'll touch on that in a minute. But back to where my ballet training comes into play of, I wanted to be a good jazz dancer. Well, since there's so much ballet influence in jazz dance, we still use the same terminology. You still use a plie, you still use a passe, you still do tendus. You then start getting into the departure of it, of isolations. And that actually does come into ballet a bit more. So I wanted to be a better jazz dancer, and also finding the breadth and the line and the strength that ballet gives to a dancer, that can be crossed over into jazz dance. So a very strong jazz dancer is able to hold on to and throw away technique all at the same time. So that was my inspiration for getting myself into ballet classes. And I've since continued my ballet training. Do I consider myself a ballet dancer professionally? No. Technically, yes, I am a capable technician of ballet, but is that the only thing that I do? No, because my job is very demanding of all aspects of my style, my technique, and my adaptability. That is also a huge thing of being able to study multiple genres of dance, is adaptability and being able to bring every little technique in. Because if you're isolated in a single technique, you can't lean on the other ones to influence it. And that's how I still take ballet. I still strive to get into ballet at least once or twice a week. It is very difficult as a freelancer to make the time for that. But it's important for me to be able to continue to stay in my technique.
Lena, I love this because you come from it from like, oh, I want to master a different style of dance. Let me lean on ballet. So I feel like you're over here and I'm coming at it from over here. Whereas like I was trained fully in ballet and didn't want to do anything else and didn't really train in anything else in my young years until I became a young professional and realized I needed the more modern, more contemporary, more jazz styles. And now as a 30-year-old professional, I'm like, shoot, I really should have diversified my training when I was younger, because then I could lean on those things, which I'm now learning, which I fortunately can do, but it's a lot harder. So it's really interesting coming into this program that clearly is not ballet focused, but has ballet technique in it. So in the video that I posted, I'm going to screen share just so our audience can see. I created this YouTube video sharing a sequence, a choreography from the Times Are Racing piece, the last one in Sneakers, kind of talking you through all of that. So just wanted to shout that out, that's out there. So it takes ballet technique. So there's their tendu, but you're doing it in sneakers. And how is that different in point shoes versus sneakers? Anyway, so just wanted to point that out to our viewers of like how it's really interesting how dancers and teachers come from different perspectives. You can get to the final point. Like Lena and I can do the same piece together that's not ballet, but I'm coming at it as like a ballet technician, and she's coming at it with all these other different languages and tools that I may not have, and how interesting that is.
So I want to piggyback off of that and say it would be important to look at what other companies are performing this same rep. So the choreography that has been presented at Pacific Northwest Ballet is also stuff that Hubbard Street in Chicago has done, Nederland's Dance Theater has done, and then is it National Ballet of Canada? So all of these different companies, so yes, some of them are more ballet focused, but if you look at Hubbard Street, they are incredibly contemporary and jazz focused, but you will see them doing some of the same choreography, a lot of what Alexei
Rutmansky,
Rutmansky's, some of his pieces they've done. Also, I want to talk about so many things. I want to talk about Balanchine, Jerome Robbins, Christopher Wheeldon, and Justin Peck on how they have all, and even Crystal Pite, of moving fluidly as choreographers between these worlds. And Leora bringing something else up of, if you look at New York City Ballet's rep, and even other companies that perform Balanchine's rep, like Pacific Northwest Ballet, the way that each of these companies do it, Miami City Ballet will do it differently than Pacific Northwest Ballet, than City Ballet. But looking at how Balanchine and Jerome Robbins worked together, they both have very different careers. Jerome Robbins choreographed for Broadway musicals, some of the most iconic choreography, West Side Story, which just had some Oscar nominees and winnings last night, which is exciting. But he has Fiddler on the Roof, iconic choreography, West Side Story, which has a lot of ballet technique in it, but it is that incredibly stylized choreography. He choreographed On the Town and Fancy Free and all of these ballets that have been performed by New York City Ballet. One of my favorites, The Concert. I know, it's one of my favorites. And then Balanchine with Slaughter on 10th Avenue. You have people dancing in heels. A technique to dance in a heel is very, very different. You would think that being on point, you could just jump right into a heel. No, it is very, very difficult to go just up a couple of inches versus being flat versus being in sneakers.
Also, I just want to say that you may think like, oh, point shoes, like, oh, so many blisters, my feet hurt. Those shoes with heels on are torture devices just as much as point shoes are. And then also like jazz shoes or socks, you think like, oh yeah, so much room for my feet to breathe. Your muscles are just like, what the heck are you doing? Like they're just so confused. And so that's also part of this program. It's very hard for ballet companies that are in point shoes. Like we just did Romeo and Juliet. We're going to do Swan Lake that are very point shoe heavy pieces to then go into this more contemporary sock dancing in jazz shoes, dancing in sneakers. It's extremely different body wise. But yeah, let me pass it on to Leora to help kind of rein us in, because I feel like we could just go in like 1,000.
I know. I have a couple of
stop this. This was so much fun. Go on, ladies.
I do have something else I wanted to comment on. Your expression of, it can be played by a female or a male. There are so many examples of this now. So another one that PMB has done is The Calling by Jessica Lange. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous piece where it is a single solo dancer in a white dress. The dress in a single spotlight, and the white dress is placed specifically out on the stage so that when the dancer turns and moves, they use the fabric it's stunning. So you can either have it as a man or a woman, or anyone really can perform this piece. So this has also been performed not only with ballet companies, but different contemporary companies, because I've seen this with Jessica Lange's company. I've seen this, I think Alvin Ailey had done it. Definitely Alonzo King has done it before. This is a very wonderful example of how both men and women can inhabit the same role. I'm also kind of on West Side Story kick. There's Anybody in West Side Story, which is generally it's a female playing a tomboyish or male represented character. Usually it's shorter, but that can be tossed back and forth between either a male identifying or a female identifying performer, or non-binary as well. So that's a lot of this is now starting to get into what does it mean to even inhabit one or two of these things, and how do we define femininity versus masculinity, and what does it take to be able to perform a role that can be inhabited or performed by both, and how is it performed differently or similarly, and depending on how somebody wants to approach that, whether a female identifying wants to take on more of a stereotypically masculine role, or the other way around, if a male identifying wants to take on a more stereotypically feminine quality to the work, and watching how these are presented by the performer is actually very, very interesting. And so it's putting on top of it the performer themselves, instead of just the choreography needing to be in one way or another. It's how does the choreography have longevity too. So it's bringing these older pieces, or even more contemporary pieces, into the future, and how they can be presented and kept relevant. That's
yeah. No, I love it. And Leora, if you don't mind, I kind of want to show a clip from Plot Point, and kind of get both your perspective, Leora, and Lena, on like, where is the ballet technique in this clip? So I'm going to take us to our Google Classrooms for Backstage at the Ballet, and click on one of the video links here. So this is the trailer for Plot Point.
Cece, is it possible for you to share sound for the screen?
Oh, shoot. I'm having a very dramatic time over here.
I'm like, it's beautiful. I wish I could hear the music accompanying it, because I know that Crystal Pite does a lot of work with her composers.
Shoot, I'm not sure if I can, and I don't want to spend technical time. Maybe I can afterwards. But it's the music to the movie Psycho, so it's very dramatic. So let me see if I can figure that out. But while I am, why don't you all start a conversation of like, why? Where's the ballet? What's going on? And where would ballet training come in to do that properly or well?
Yeah. So Leora, do you want to start?
Yeah, with pleasure. I actually appreciated the opportunity to watch it without the music, because it allowed me to be more focused on the movement, and to read what the bodies were saying. And I'll admit that I am biased in favor of ballet. I can't help it. I will contend, and I know that I'm not alone in this camp, that ballet training is such that it molds you into being a very articulate tool for the choreographer. And even though you may be asked to do something which you did not train for specifically, the training in a broader sense creates certain connections between brain and body that allow you to be very flexible, not in the range of motion, meaning of the word, but flexible in terms of how you can use your body, how you can bring in all of your physical abilities and use them at will. And I think that that is one of the key things that ballet allows you, that you are the master of your body and you can bring it to do exactly with precision what it is asked to do. And you're not limited in what your body can offer.
Yeah, I'll actually, yes, and I'm gonna bring in some improv because I also have I take acting classes and I do improv, and I find that all of those things help influence my performance as a dancer. So yes, and to ballet makes you a malleable tool for a choreographer. Yes, and any physical active, any focused physical activity. So even people who do martial arts, jazz technique, and anything that is making you quickly learn and how to move your body, any movement practitioner can be argued to do the same thing. It's that also ballet has helped me be able to pick up choreography and change choreography very quickly. So learning combinations at the bar, reversing things, which is important for musical theater performance being a swing. Those have been talked about a lot lately because of call outs due to COVID or covers, et cetera. Totally different topic, but being able to take choreography and turn it into something else. However, if you are in such a rigid training that you cannot understand how to move your body in a certain manner. So by taking a jazz class or a tap class or a hip hop class, anything that makes you think outside of the traditional rhythms and musicality of ballet, that brings you into more contemporary, you're able to then apply ballet technique to a contemporary piece of music that might be in a 12 count plus an 8 plus like rhythms and stuff. So even going back to Slaughter on 10th Avenue, they have a tap dancer in there. And some of the percussive nature of thinking of like stalling, and in hip hop, you have all of these like freezes and isolations from jazz. There's a lot in Plot Point. It is all of Crystal Pite's work. Everything comes together as one cohesive contemporary piece. You need to have the ballet technique. So what I saw in there very specifically was the lines. That's like the most basic stuff that you get from ballet, is training to get your body to look and present in a certain manner. The partnering, the weight sharing, all of that is incredibly important to be able to do. But then you start getting into things that are a bit more jazz inspired or modern, where you have all of the very sharp and contemporary movements, the isolations of the rib cage, which usually doesn't happen in classical. Yes, and like a lot of the hand movements. If you study a lot of Southeast Asian influences, of the very, very, very like specific hand movements that can, and looking at Bob Fosse's choreography of like how just like a single finger can make a huge difference on stage. Crystal Pite brings that into not only Plot Point, but also one of my favorite pieces of Emergence. Just very, very like, yeah, so many different things. And it's yes, and in terms of the application of ballet technique and being a moldable piece for a choreographer. So the more palettes that you can choose from, the more color you can bring to something that is being asked of you.
And I think it's really interesting too. I think you brought it up a little bit earlier, Lena, about how important ballet training is for just learning the vocabulary. So like a tendu or a plie or a grand plie or a passe or a développé, that's going to be used, that language, even though it's French and for ballet, is used for all different types of styles. So like all 4 of these pieces, yeah, they're no point shoes. It's not technically ballet. It's more contemporary modern dance, but that vocabulary was used throughout their learning process. Yes, because that's what we're familiar with, but also that's just how the dance community communicates with each other in a single language. So I just wanted to point that out for our teachers listening of like, that's why teaching vocabulary to students is so vital and so important to understand not only what the word is, but what it means. So when someone says tendu, like it means to stretch your leg, but that's also in contemporary dance could be stretch your leg and elongate it and continue it. Like, yeah, that's not technically a ballet tendu, but that is the meaning of tendu in a more developed contemporary way. So wanted to point that out. But Leora, why don't you wrap us up with like one more conversation starter, and then we'll close it up.
Conversation starter or closer?
Both?
Whichever.
Both.
um,
The beginning of the
I
end.
think it's an interesting experience to see a ballet company perform works that are not balletic per se. There is thought put into what types of work we could present, where we could do our best and be at our best, but also do justice with the works themselves. And clearly, it has been deemed that these works stand to benefit from ballet dancers performing them. So even though one might be aghast at the mere idea of dancing in socks on the ballet stage, ballet has what to offer. I think that you, Cecilia, used that, framed that at the beginning. I hope that you will all enjoy watching the works on the digital performance. A note is that COT will not be included in the digital performance, but we have provided a link to a performance from elsewhere. It was a pleasure.
I tried to find out why COT wasn't on there because, to be honest, that's the piece that everyone loved the most out of all 4. It's a super cool piece. So please go on the Google Classrooms. I'm going to actually walk through the Google Classroom so people know how to use it because I know it's new. But it's based on like this choreographer seeing a photo shoot and wanting to capture dance as a photo shoot using all the imagery and the lighting and everything. So the dancer has a clicker and there's strobe lights that get like flashed at them. It's an incredible piece. But we can watch that clip just quickly. And I don't know if my video is or the audio is gonna work, but so for all of those who don't know, this is Google Classrooms that we have for the Backstage at the Ballet. The link is in all of the emails and I'll share it in the WhatsApp group as well. And we have all of our past sessions here. So in each session episode, we have all the clips that we can find, either full length, which we can't get for these pieces, but little clips that you can watch. And then this is the video that I created with choreography from one of the pieces that you can learn and teach to your students. And then in this section, we'll put this recording of this chat here. And then learn more. Leora will put the PDF reference that she put on. So similar in Romeo and Juliet, we have actually the full length production here, choreography of a section that I recorded myself, the chat, and then the PDF. So just so you know, this is a library of all the references that we are talking to, but here I see COT. So I actually haven't seen this.
Cece, I also dropped a Vimeo link to you in the chat.
Okay.
It's a slightly higher quality from 2016 at the Joyce.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, and I don't know why you can't hear it, but I'll just, while I'm talking, you can watch this. But it's incredible, and you'll see, oh my gosh, yeah, here the strobes. And this is a dancer controlling all of the strobe lighting for the production. So clearly this is not like a typical ballet production. It's very much like more theatrical, but very cool. Anyway, I digress. Leora said it's not going to be on the digital program. And I think it's because lighting is really hard to capture on video. And I think P&B just wanted to have the most high quality production that they're putting on. But you luckily have other resources, and I'll put the one that Lena added in the chat. Oh my gosh, how cool is that?
The first time that I saw Caught, I would think I was in high school. I saw a VHS of it at some point, and I could not get it out of my brain how cool this was. And just knowing that it was choreographed, gosh, what was it? Let's see.
In like the 70s or 80s.
I'm looking, Jacob's Pillow has it. It was choreographed in 1982.
Oh my gosh.
So if we think about where we are now with technology and where we are with just how many interesting things that we can do with lighting design, and this is my interest of utilizing technology to enhance and be incorporated in live theatrical productions. But 1982, think about what was happening at that point, and how far we've come even just since the development of film and photography, which is just barely over what, like 150 years now, 150 or 200 years tops. We're still in our infancy in this development, and how Caught is one of my favorite pieces that I've ever seen. And I'm so sad it's not on the digital.
Yeah, I feel bad that we're talking so much about it, but then you won't be able to see it, but you'll see the recording.
There are records and there are recordings that are out on the internet, like the one Cece brought up. Even if you just look it up, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
It's accessible. It's just not going to be in PB's recording.
Yeah, so we'll gather it all up in our Google Classrooms, but I don't want this to go on for too long, because we could literally talk about so many things for forever. But Leora, thank you so much for putting your intro to the production plot points together so succinctly, and Lena for sharing your thoughts on ballet training and how it's helped you and kind of coming from different directions. But thank you all for joining us. And yeah, we'll see you again soon. Bye, you guys.
Bye-bye.